Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank the distinguished gentleman and my good friend from Maryland for yielding me the customary 30 minutes, and I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The rule before us today provides for consideration of H.R. 8873, which, let's just call it what it is. This is a partisan messaging bill for my friends across the aisle. My colleagues want to ram through Congress this bill to change the way presidential elections are conducted. H.R. 8873 is attempting to reform the Electoral Count Act for the first time since 1887. That's the first time in 135 years we're taking a look at this. Yet despite that, no hearings were held on this bill. And the text was introduced just a mere 24 hours before it was presented at the Rules Committee yesterday. During testimony before the Rules Committee, the sponsor of the bill, Chair Lofgren, she mentioned repeatedly the lengthy process they undertook to draft this bill, including consulting the country's leading so-called experts. Yet, she did not bother to bring this legislation before her own committee for consideration. Given the majority's constant claims of democracy itself being under attack, one would think that the Democratic Party and my colleagues across the aisle would bring bills through the appropriate channels and mechanisms. But my colleagues across the aisle will also try to tell you that this bill is a reform. It's a reaction to the objections to certifying the 2020 election. However, both sides of the aisle have long used their legal authority to object to presidential elections. Notable individuals that have exercised this authority include no other than Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, and that's just to name a few. Again, they have all used this authority to object to presidential elections. Even our distinguished chairman of the Rules Committee and someone I consider a good friend objected to the 2016 elections. My other Rules Committee colleague and good friend from Maryland also objected. In fact, following the 2016 election, Democrats objected to certifying the electoral votes of more states than Republicans did in 2021. Following her loss to President Trump, Hillary Clinton continued to attack the integrity of our democratic process by insisting ad nauseum that President Trump was, I quote, an illegitimate president. Stacey Abrams, another great example, the current Georgia Democratic gubernatorial nominee, she has built a national brand on denying election results and making baseless accusations of suppression and voter fraud. She claimed that she won the 2018 election for governor and has yet to concede the 2018 race. But we can go all the way back to 2005. Democrats objected in that year to certifying Ohio's electoral votes, with Senator Barbara Boxer joining Representative Stephanie Tubbs Jones to require a vote. 31 members of the House voted against certifying these results, 12 of whom are still in Congress today. And I presume those 12 are now supporting this legislation hypocritically. But this precedent goes back even further than 2005 and 2001. We can take this back to 1961 with President John F. Kennedy. JFK, just a quick history lesson, drafted his own secret slate of electors, declaring himself the winner of Hawaii's electoral votes when the state was originally called for Richard Nixon. Yet today, let's just talk about today, despite the history. Today, the actual purpose of this bill is nothing more than an attempt to federalize our elections. This is a way to backdoor H.R. 1 into legislation. And this is nothing more than an attack on President Trump in the 2020 election, an attack on a man who's not been in office for nearly 2 years. This is about giving Congress unprecedented authority on how to interpret state law, how to restrict state discretion, and how to impose control on state election officials. For those reasons, I urge my colleagues to oppose this rule, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The